Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, you're going to meet the great Mark Mitford. He is the author of this new book. It's called People Are Your Profit, His Incredible Journey, just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
I'm so excited about this show because I've always thought of myself as a good leader. I hire the right people and get them in the right seat on the right bus. And so I love other people who are dedicated to excellence when it comes to people, because people are the biggest expense of any organization. No one knows that better than my next guest. Mark Mitford is in the studio. He's the managing director of HR Catalyst Consulting and the author of this book. All right,
Great.
So thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, why don't you take us back in time? So how did your journey begin?
Wow, my journey began. I don't know. Do you want to do? Do you want me to do the professional side of my journey? It's been
You pick.
so I can do the personal side, which you can't pick up from my fairly nondescript accent now. But I was born in London, England. My parents moved when I was 7 to a little place in northern Ontario in Canada. A place called Thunder Bay, Ontario, northern shore of the Lake Superior. I was there from 7 until 19 through high school. And then after that journey, then I moved to Texas. And I've been in Texas ever since. Started out academically, my career started out at Baylor, so Sic 'em Bears.
Yeah.
And then I zipped down to San Antonio for a graduate degree and then moved up to Texas at the beginning of 1990.
Wow. And so did you work in corporate America for a while before you started your company?
I did. I worked, I've been really blessed that I've worked for some great companies in the Texas area, Dallas area. Some of the notables are Ericsson, still here now. It used to be in Richardson.
Sure.
I worked at Texas Instruments for a number of years, and then a little place called PepsiCo.
Wow.
I worked there. And then my career actually pivoted a bit. And I ended up focusing on, moved down in size to where I focus now in my consulting life. So I worked into then lower middle market size companies. Typically, they're definitionally companies anywhere between 5 to about 500 million in revenue. And then I moved into those organizations, and they were 3 corporate stints where I headed up HR. And that chronologically gets us to 2013. And that's when I started HR Catalyst Consulting.
Congratulations. I found a video as I was doing homework for the show. Let's go ahead and roll that.
We partner with our clients to create and implement strategies that optimize employee performance, improve company culture, and increase profitability by serving as a trusted advisor and your part-time human resources leader. If we just described a pain point your business is currently facing, we would love to see how we can help you solve that pain point. Contact us through our Get in Touch tab on our website. We look forward to helping you solve your people issues so that you can focus on growing your business.
So you actually do fractional work.
Correct.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so fractional work, for those that aren't familiar, and I would estimate in the DFW Metroplex itself, there's probably 10,000 fractional executives. So CXOs, so you can put it, the X is for anything you want to fill in. I would say most of them are predominantly chief financial officers, so CFO, and I would be the CHRO. So in essence, and I jokingly, when I talk to clients, I jokingly say that you can't afford me full-time, but you can afford me part-time. So in essence, what we try to do is we focus on, in some cases, we work with companies for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years.
Yes.
And we actually then help to create and then build out a people strategy for their business that aligns with their growth plan.
Beautiful. I'm going to put your book cover up on the screen so people can see it. It's a beautiful cover. People are your profit. And you said you kind of started working on this in your mind several years ago.
Right. So my mind is a dangerous place. A lot of times you see squirrels, and we have a lot of squirrels in our neighborhood in Grapevine. But it was really thinking about there's so many organizations, actually over 99% of the U.S. formed companies that are officially formed and they have at least an LLC. They fall into the market space that we actually serve. So those are companies that are typically between anywhere as from 5 million to about 100 million, maybe 150 million in revenue. And it's amazing how those companies, a lot of them simply the business owners or the business leader, they don't know what they don't know about the people side of the business.
Yes.
And so that's the part where we try to come in and serve them with a compelling solution, being that fractional HR executive.
Well, and as companies grow, the culture changes. So if a guy opens up an ice cream shop in Plano and he or she is successful, they open up another one and then another one, and pretty soon they don't know all their employees, and maybe they just wanted to make ice cream.
Exactly.
They didn't want to manage people. So the company gets too big and they contact somebody like you to say, okay, how do I deal with all these people?
Yeah, that's so true. It's because part of it is, and I think you hit the nail on the head so well, Jeff, is that when you're small, when you have 5 people or 10 people, you know everybody. And then quite often you actually hired everybody yourself. And these might have been people you know and trust. These could have been friends from your kids played on the same softball team. You worship at the same church, whatever it is. But you already know and trust these people. But as you scale your business, and then you go from 10 people to 20 people to 50 people, you no longer know all of these people, and you may not still be that heavily involved in the actual hiring and selection process. So then all of a sudden, and we have a chapter on here in the book about company culture. And I would say even a company like PepsiCo or an Ericsson that have been around for many, many years, they have a very compelling culture. And the biggest thing that business owners need to think about as they grow their business from 20 to 50 people is what are those big markers they have for the company culture?
Yes.
And how do you replicate that? And also the way I try to articulate that to clients is you hire against your culture and your core values, and you also would promote against your culture. You would also possibly terminate against your culture. So if they're not good cultural fits,
Right.
you would actually terminate people who don't fit, because it's almost like an organ transplant. So if you don't have a perfect match,
Yeah.
and the correlation there would be with your people, if they don't match well with the culture, it's almost like they're going to be the salmon that's always swimming upstream. And there's always going to be some natural tension there, which you don't want to have within the business, because that's going to slow you down.
You were telling me a story right before we started rolling about one of your favorite success stories.
Right.
Would you share that?
Sure. No, I'd love to. The success story this is an ORX actually is ironically with success, but this is a formalized process within HR around succession planning. So succession planning, simply put into the short version, it really is focusing on who are the heir apparents to move into senior leadership roles. So a vice president, senior vice president, C-level position. Who are those people? And identifying at least 1 or 2 people, and ideally a few, who could move into those positions, including the CEO position. And you do that if you're a publicly traded company, if you are a privately held company, you need to do that. But then it's also going to look at those diamonds in the rough, because if you look at most leaders out there, they're either Gen X or they're baby boomers. And quite often in a company that has a baby boomer running it, let's say they're 65 years old, the people who are on their executive team are probably in their 60s also. So you got to be looking at who is going to replace that person when that person retires or they have a major life event. But also looking at the secondary process is really about the diamonds in the rough. Who are those 35-year-olds, the 32-year-olds, the 37-year-olds? Who are people that you not only need to identify, but you really need to retain?
Yes.
Because nowadays, good talent is hard to find.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if it's during the pandemic or it's during if it's a boom cycle or a bust cycle, good talent can always find jobs. And so what are you doing intentionally to retain those people?
We're going to pull up your website, and as we scroll down the website, why don't you talk about how does a company know when they need to bring in a guy like you?
Right. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, there it is. And so it's I would say the biggest thing is if they're starting to see some of the major hindrances in their business possibly was growing financially year over year, let's say at a really nice clip of 15% year over year. So their revenue was growing every 15% year over year. And what they're doing now, they're starting to see their revenue growth starting to stagnate.
Mm.
And when they reflect on that, because ideally if they're having a strategic planning session, they're like, what's going on different? What are we doing differently, or what are we doing wrong? And hopefully as they reflect during a strategic planning session, they will actually find, what? The people we're hiring are not that great anymore. We're looking at some of our key people.
Yes.
As I mentioned earlier about retention, some people who have been here 5, 7, 10 years are now starting to leave. And so we're finding out that key positions are harder to fill. And we're really finding out that a lot of the pain point and that inflection around slowing us down our business, it's actually our people.
Mm.
And so then they hopefully through networking or contacts, they'll figure out there's people like myself and my company that can actually help them to create a people strategy
Yes.
for their business, because most of them, ironically, even though there's so much cost baked into your people,
Yes.
most of them have never thought about their people as a strategic asset.
Yes. And bosses can have blind spots. So as we speak, the #1 movie in the country is The Devil Wears Prada 2.
Yes.
And she's kind of a classic example of a boss that chased away some of the, best and brightest.
Right.
So is part of your strategy to make sure that the right seats are in the right bus, and sometimes it's, hey, sorry, CEO, you're the problem?
It could be. There's times where the CEO or maybe another C-level executive is the problem. And in a couple of companies, I've worked with them because they had a C-level employee who wasn't a good cultural fit.
Mm.
And so I think the biggest thing is if you have core values such as, integrity, customer-centric, team-focused, again, just generic core values, if they're not meeting those core values and really emulating those and leading by example with those core values, then the big question I would have, they are working against your culture, not for your culture.
Yes.
And if it's a C-level employee who has 100 people working for them, and they could be the major inhibitor, and they may have very high turnover.
Yes.
Nobody wants to work for them. And when people hire, they may cycle out of the company within maybe, let's say, 3 to 6 months.
Yes.
So those could all be symptoms, just like when you go to a doctor. Yeah. You're looking at the symptom, but the root cause could be that individual or a handful of individuals who are actually working against your culture versus for your culture.
Yes. We have about 3 minutes left, so I want you to describe what an engagement looks like. If you get retained by a company, are you spending the first couple weeks listening?
Listening, and we would typically, in a lot of cases, Jeff, we would actually do an HR assessment. So it's a small fee, but we would actually, I jokingly say, it's almost looking for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Mm-hmm. And what we do there, it's a very, it's an old school method. We do individual one-on-one confidential interviews with people at different levels in the organization. So a couple of C-level, a couple of executives, some mid-level managers, and some employees. And we also want to get a difference in tenure.
Yes.
So employees that have been there for ideally less than a year, and employees who have been there for 5 years and greater. So what we're trying to do there is then once we do that assessment, we will actually consolidate the results. So we do a lot of listening.
Yes.
And we ask the individuals identically the same questions.
Yeah.
So we're really looking for this holistic view of what's going on well and what's broken. Yeah. And in some cases, they may have a process like a performance evaluation process.
Yeah.
But it's not uncommon that an employee may say, so an employee's been there for 10 years. Well, I haven't had a review done in 8 years. Nobody ever cares. They said, oh, you're doing fine. Joe, you're doing fine. Just keep doing what you're doing. And that's their review. And they're like, well, maybe I want to grow into a different role. Maybe I want to migrate and transfer over here.
Yes.
But in some cases, they don't have the forum to actually where somebody's going to listen to them, who's their boss. And so they're just kind of stuck.
Yes.
And they're a disengaged employee, which is where most employees in the U.S. actually sit. They're a disengaged, which in my simple world, they're there for a paycheck. They don't give any discretionary income or discretionary effort. They're simply there. They come in at 8. If their job's 8 to 5, they come in at 8. And by 5 o'clock on the dot, they're the first ones out the parking lot.
Yep. Yep.
So.
Okay, in the final 30 seconds or so, why don't you look into the camera on the left and talk to that CEO who might need to engage you?
Yeah, so for a CEO out there who would be looking at this, I would say the biggest thing you need to be thinking about is if you're finding that the biggest thing that's keeping you up at night is really a lot of the people side of the business and the people having a lack of strategy. And if you're growing significantly, I would love to have a conversation with you. And that conversation would be just finding out a lot more about your business. And I would love to tell you about some solutions we may be able to provide for you.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. We're going to end with your website, which is hrcatalystconsulting.com. The great Mark Mitford. Thanks for coming on the show.
Great. Thanks, Jeff.
You bet. That's it for
Great meeting
now.
you.
We'll see you next time.